Breaking news coming in hot, strong, and big regarding Bitcoin as we are well approaching critical metrics across the weekly chart. With the biggest narrative involving the Bitcoin spot ETF approval heating up bigger than you could ever imagine. I hope you're wearing your waterproof, stain-free trousers because things are about to get downright disgusting. Right now, the price of Bitcoin is at its highest levels in the last few days as we have an little itsy-bitsy pump as we're anticipating CPIs coming out this week, the CPI report. But more importantly than anything is some breaking news regarding a Bitcoin spot ETF approval and a scenario which is more likely than anything. Once we get these approvals, it's just going to be kind of a ridiculous, insane hype fest, and I want to explain why it's so big. And it's not really something I think many people were thinking about too much until probably today. So the first thing I want to look at too, if we look at Bitcoin on just the daily chart, we're having a little itsy bitsy test here again for the third time in about the last 3 weeks on the 21-day moving average, which is right here. This purple line is the 21-day moving average, and we got an initial rejection, a pump up to here, rejection back on the 23rd of July. Then we got it last week on the 1st and 2nd of August, and now we're there again. As we're kind of trying to break out of this about month-long little falling wedge pattern, trying to ultimately inch and squinch above here. Last time we did try to break out of it, which was at the very beginning of August, we got rejected at the 21-day and got pushed right back into this pattern. And now we're having a second attempt to try and break above this. So this is actually a pretty big moment to see if we're able to break above this or get rejected. Now, before we continue with Bitcoin's charts there, I want to talk about this. So the Galaxy Digital CEO talking about BlackRock and how it is a matter of when, not if, a Bitcoin spot ETF is approved in about 4 to 6 months. Now, that's not really the big deal. The bigger deal out of this is, let's read a little bit about, this information here. According to contacts from inside BlackRock and Invesco, spot Bitcoin ETF approval is a matter of when, not if. It's a big deal because both of our contacts from both Invesco and BlackRock gets you to think this is a question of when, not if, and that the outside window is probably about 6 months from now, which is, again, really lined up nicely with the Bitcoin halving. It is the perfect storm, perfect whirlwind. Now, it's important to recognize and factor into all of this. We could end up not getting a single Bitcoin spot ETF approval, right? That could be a very realistic scenario. There's no guarantee we're going to get Bitcoin spot ETF approvals. And that being said, I absolutely think Bitcoin will run up into the halving and after the halving, as it has always done. And I think we'll be very bullish for the space. I just think a Bitcoin spot ETF approval will be that cherry on top, and more like about 1,000 cherries on top. It would be insane. The amount of institutional money that would come into this would be huge. Now, the big thing about this, though, is the reality of what exactly this means. So we all know it's not just BlackRock that has filed for a Bitcoin spot ETF. It's literally like what, over 10, 15 or something? Basically, every institution is filing for Bitcoin spot ETFs. Why? Because whoever gets approved, if it's one of them, all of them, or just half of them, whoever does end up getting approval will see massive amounts of inflow, massive amount of capital flood into their product, into their spot ETF. The demand is insane. That is why the literal largest asset manager on the planet, BlackRock, and everyone else, has applied to try to be a part of this. Now, the big thing about this is it says here, which Eric Balcunaz on Twitter quotes, "We're going to fight like cats and dogs for market share." This is something Cathie Wood continues to talk about, but it's something she brought up on ETF IQ yesterday. All of these ETFs will basically do the same thing, which is to hold BTC. So marketing is going to be crucial and probably way over the top, he says. So what does that mean? There's 10 or so Bitcoin spot ETFs waiting for potential approval. Are any of them doing something unique? Not really. They're all doing the same thing. They're looking to hold Bitcoin basically for institutional investors. Now, if they're all doing the same thing and there's nothing really unique about any of them, it comes down to marketing. Who is going to market it better? Who is going to be able to capture the market? Because like most things, it will probably be concentrated on one of these Bitcoin spot ETFs if they get approved. For example, maybe all the money goes to BlackRock, which I'm sure a lot of people are betting on right now. So if that is the case, the frenzy is going to be crazy, in my opinion. Let's say these do get approved. They're going to be racing to get your attention, to get your money, to get institutional money in their Bitcoin spot ETF, which further just sends the hype into overload. Okay, we're talking about how much hype there would be to get a single Bitcoin spot ETF approved regardless. If we actually see multiple approvals, they are going to be vying and fighting like crazy for that money, for that custody, or to be able to be the one that ultimately gets the capital into it to custody that Bitcoin, to store that Bitcoin, to hold the Bitcoin. So the competition then becomes innately just insane. And it's something, the reason that's exciting for anybody that holds Bitcoin is because that directly benefits people that hold Bitcoin. What it does is it takes the top asset managers on the planet into a frenzy competing against each other to market the heck out of Bitcoin, which benefits the price of Bitcoin and benefits anybody that's holding Bitcoin. It's like free marketing on the biggest scale possible. So that's just like one little effect and just huge catalyst and massive wave of hype and frenzy that will come into play if Bitcoin spot ETFs get approved. And according to these reports by the Galaxy Digital CEO Novogratz, it's 4 to 6 months away. Again, there's no guarantee, but it does look, the current climate definitely looks like it's more likely that a Bitcoin spot ETF will get approved than it did a month ago. It's looking a little bit better and better. And it's a very exciting time to be in crypto. And also, Bitcoin Archive posting this, the BBWs, the Bollinger Bands are at the tightest levels that we've seen. Is this ever, I believe? You can see right now, extremely tight. Go back to the beginning of 2022. Massive moves happen when they get this tight. Okay, we had two of the lowest readings on these Bollinger Bands back in 2016 and 2017. Both led to massive pumps and ended up pushing Bitcoin to almost 20,000 US dollars. Massive squeeze in Bollinger Bands back then in late 2018, massive dump. Then next time squeeze, massive pump. Next time squeeze, massive dump. And this is the biggest squeeze of all of them. And if it's following the kind of pattern that it's been for the past 5 years, the next one would be a massive pump. And kind of adding to that as well, CryptoCon on Twitter pointing this out, that we're, in my opinion, the very early stages of a bull market. We're still kind of in that transitionary period where half people are saying bear market, half people are saying bull. But ultimately, in my opinion, when we look back, and I've been saying this for a while, when we look back, I think we're in the period right now where we're transitioning from a bear to a bull. And people are completely unsure about it, just like every time that's happened before. Okay, if you go back in history, like say for example back in this range of about the 2019 range, a lot of people, I was making videos back then. People were very bearish on Bitcoin. They were saying, we'll never get to $20,000 ever again, right? There were people even saying we'd never go back above 10,000 back here, and then we did. But anyway, if you look back, if you would have bought here, you basically caught the entire bull market. But back here, nobody knew it was the beginning of a bull market. Okay? Otherwise, everybody would be investing. That's simple market psychology. For it to be the beginning of a bull market and really great opportunity, basically, most people have to believe it is not a bull market. Otherwise, then everyone would benefit. And that's just simply not how any market works. Okay? I don't think there's ever been a market on the planet where 100% of investors win. Right? There are people that are always betting one way and other people betting the opposite way. And some people have to lose. That's just how markets work. Not everybody can be trillionaires, okay? I think that's pretty obvious. I think anyone can agree and understand that. Some people have to, the smallest amount of people control the largest amount of wealth. And that's also echoed in cycles, stock cycles, but also in crypto as well. But anyway, after the two massive spikes we saw in 2022 and 2023, which again, in my firm opinion, mark the bottoms of this bear market, which now we're in the very beginning stages of the bull market. We've just gotten, again, a nice loss spike in the middle of this beginning bull market, which CryptoCon says is very rare, and basically act quick when you see something like this, and I agree. But if we go back to Bitcoin's charts, we take a look today, Bitcoin is still on the weekly chart above the 200-week moving average, which is very big. You can see that here, support right around 27,000. So again, even though I still believe there's absolutely room to move down and still be bullish, we don't have to. There's no guarantee we have to dump first before getting a continued pump. And all the while today, the stock market is actually down. We're seeing the S&P, for example, it is now below, and it's been for the past week, below its 21-day moving average. And today it's setting lower lows, going back down to the levels we were at back in early July. So about a little over a month ago. With the DXY kind of moving up a little bit, it's kind of just in the same trading range, not really doing too much. A lot of overhead resistance on the DXY. But ultimately, yeah, I mean, looking at Bitcoin on the daily chart, as we pointed out, there's still a massive amount of room where we could pull back and it would still be bullish and healthy, but that there's no guarantee that we have to. And with that being said, somebody actually commented on one of my tweets like over the last 20 minutes, basically saying, because of all this institutional interest at the beginning of a bull market, is it possible we actually maybe even top out leading into the halving, which would change everything we've known about previous cycles. But I don't personally believe every cycle is exactly the same. There's obviously nuances, and I think that's good. I don't think, even though ultimately I do think Bitcoin is going to, if we pull out a longer term chart here, ultimately I do think Bitcoin is going to do something like this. Who's to say that all this anticipation of the halving, where everyone knows about the Bitcoin halving now, for pizza's sake, even CNBC talks about the Bitcoin halving, okay? Even they know about the Bitcoin halving and how it affects the supply. Who's to say that the knowledge of that now, with only about roughly 8 months until the next Bitcoin halving, who's to say maybe we have our top before or right around the halving instead of about half a year after, which it usually is, like 150 to 200 days after the halving? Who's to say? That would catch a lot of people off guard, right? It would still be insane. We could still make a massive amount of money. It would just be a completely different timeline than most people would be expecting. And again, what most people don't expect is, in my opinion, again, it can be more likely to happen. Looking at Bitcoin's chart, though, again, as I said, this will be huge if we actually break above the 21-day. We can actually get back to some bullish structure on Bitcoin. We've kind of been in a bearish, dumpy trend ever since July, the beginning of July, after we had that initial bust at the end of June, putting us back above 30K and even up to like 32K almost. But yeah, ultimately, we've been in a downtrend really since July 14th. And so it's been about 4 weeks of just dumpiness. Getting back above this daily moving average is the first indication, okay, maybe we can have some more bullish momentum. And we haven't done it yet, so that's important to keep in mind. But ultimately, again, holding support at this level on this trend that goes back like 7 months is really important for Bitcoin. And regardless of what happens within the next week, I do think there's a good possibility in the next week we might have like a nice bust back above 30 and can maybe continue this trend to try and reclaim 30 ultimately as support, and really just kick off the real meat and tomatoes of this next bull market. But ultimately, it really doesn't matter, because in a couple of months, I fully expect, one, Bitcoin to be a lot higher than it is now as we get closer and closer to the halving. Again, we're like 8 months out from the halving. This is simultaneously the most boring price action we've seen in a long time, but also the most fundamentally exciting and opportunistic time to be in crypto, period. Okay? I personally believe we will be getting Bitcoin spot ETF approvals eventually. As they say, it's a matter of when, not if. Will it be in the next 6 months? Maybe. I don't think it's that important, because I think ultimately the demand is going to be so strong, as we've seen. For pizza's sake, even Larry Fink, the BlackRock CEO, has changed his tune from the last Bitcoin cycle, saying nobody cares about it, to now getting on TV and basically saying it's better than gold. He's said that twice on CNBC. Okay, insane. Everything has flipped. This cycle is going to be huge, and it might be, as I've been saying, I think it'll be the biggest one, maybe the last real one to make a lot of money. To take advantage of massive sign-up and deposit bonuses if you're interested with Femex and BitGet below, massive welcome and sign-up deposits and trading bonuses with Femex now, specifically new ones as well. If you just click my link and sign up, you can see all the information there in the description. Without further ado,